Exchange. What is wrong with California? The state just came dangerously close to shutting off power in places where people were suffering through temperatures over 100 degrees. In other words, potentially cutting off air conditioning at a time when most people needed it most to stay safe. Now, politicians mostly blaming the record heat, and that certainly played a role in energy demand. But with climate change, we should expect it to be hotter for longer, and we need to prep for it. But California seems to be going the other way, and only just finally did a major U-turn on nuclear power. Joining us now is Michael Schellenberger, president of Environmental Progress and author of what I think is a must-read book, Apocalypse Never. It's a real eye-opener if you're interested in climate change and energy. I don't know how you don't read it. Michael, it's great to have you on the program. Thank you. I grew up in the shadow of San Onofre in Encinitas, California. We used to go there and actually surf. That is no longer a nuclear power plant. The state just agreed to keep its only nuclear power plant open for a little bit longer, which is good news. But here's my question to you. How in the hell did we get to a point where people actually considered shutting off the only reliable thing that was 10% of the state's daily energy supply? It's mind-blowing.
Well, yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me on. I mean, like you, I grew up as a teenager when Chernobyl happened, grew up very afraid of nuclear. I was a big advocate for renewables. It's become a bit of a religion out here in California. We've certainly been talking about climate change for a long time, so there's no excuse for not being prepared for heat waves. But yeah, I mean, people got a very apocalyptic worldview around nuclear starting in the 60s. It was the last nuclear plant that we still are operating, Diablo Canyon, was actually supported by the Sierra Club. The turn against it was really because people didn't want to have enough energy to support a growing population. And that continues to be the reason that we in California don't allow desalination plants that we desperately need. It's the reason why they don't create enough water storage facilities and why we have water shortages. So there's just a kind of, for lack of a better word, I guess just an anti-human, anti-civilization, very romantic worldview. So we've been shutting down natural gas power plants as well. And now they're burning diesel and kerosene to keep the lights on. It's a really serious situation, actually.
I want to get you back on to talk about desalination because Arizona, Nevada, and Utah would love that, but environmental boards won't allow it. That's a different segment. California also has to buy power from other states in order to meet sometimes peak load, does it not? And the risk there. And I don't think people realize how close this came. If Arizona or Nevada decides they don't want to sell California any more power because they need it all for themselves, the lights, the heat, and the air conditioning are going off. In the richest state in the world, in America and the world.
Well, yeah, not that, but we pay the most for electricity than any other state except for Hawaii. We've had the most expensive gasoline prices, and we also pay the highest taxes. So certainly it's not for lack of money. In some ways, it's because we've been spending so much trying to move to renewables, and we're just experiencing the limits of trying to rely on what are fundamentally, unreliable, weather-dependent energy sources. But you're exactly right. I mean, in 2020, when we came very close to having blackouts, the problem was that we share weather with the states around us. So when it's hot here, it tends to be hot in neighboring states, and they also need their gas-powered power plants online. And now because we underinvested in maintaining our forests, we have these catastrophic forest fires every year. Well, the smoke from the fires is now reducing the output from the solar farms and from solar. So, it's a badly managed state, and I think it's a case of where ideology actually has created incompetence.
Well, it's also, listen, from a media perspective, and I try to get it as right as I can, Michael, and I'm sure I've screwed stuff up in the past. I've been doing this 25 years. If you actually dig into the numbers, and I've got a buddy of mine who lives in Calistoga, his house almost burned down. He got very, very lucky. He looked into it. He's a former investment banker, smart guy. To your point, we always blame the fires on energy. The reality and sometimes it is, power line goes down, but if the power line is 75 years old and nobody has bothered to cut the underbrush from the trees for 30 years because of some reason, either lack of money, lack of effort, or they just don't want to do it, it's a tinderbox. You're literally man is creating these conditions.
That's right. I mean, there's no need for electricity shortages, there's no need for water shortages, and there's no need for catastrophic high-intensity fires. You just have to maintain the forests. You just have to have a combination of prescribed burns and mechanical thinning of forests. In some ways, we used to just produce a lot more paper and pulp, and thanks to our iPhones, we don't, need to use newspapers as much anymore. So we don't have as much of that, but we have to maintain those forests, and it's expensive. It requires a lot of people's efforts. And when we've had this incredible heavy focus on climate change to the exclusion of doing things like maintaining our forests, which the governor actually cut the budget for, you end up with these catastrophic fires. So it's just a straight up management issue. These issues, this is not like going to Mars or something.
Yeah.
This is just maintaining your civilization.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be that hard or complicated, but you got to have adult conversations that probably make some people uncomfortable once in a while. Michael Schellenberger with Environmental Progress. Michael, pleasure to have you on. Good chat, and we'll talk desalination next time. State of my birth, I still love it.